After driving 9 hours through a snowstorm to surprise my husband on his new job start, I walked into the hotel lobby only to see him holding hands with my boss. She looked up and smirked. I guess the promotion wasn't just about performance. I turned to him and said, "Hope HR enjoys this conversation. I've always hated driving in the snow. Maybe it's because my father died in a winter car accident when I was 16. Or maybe it's just the sheer unpredictability of it, the way the ice hides under fresh powder, waiting to send you skidding into a guardrail. Either way, snowstorms have always set my teeth on edge. Yet, here I was, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were bone white, my breath fogging up the inside of my windshield as I squinted through the relentless snowfall. 9 hours. That's how long I had been driving. 9 hours of whiteout conditions, of slipping and sliding through icy patches, of heart-stopping moments when a truck veered too close. 9 hours of snow piling on my wipers faster than they could clear it. And for what? For him. For Drew. My husband of 8 years. The man I had built a life with, the man I had sacrificed for, the man I had defended when people said he wasn't ambitious enough, when they said he wasn't good enough for me. The man who had moved to Pittsburgh 3 months ago for his big opportunity, a job he had claimed was the break he had been waiting for his entire life. We had agreed that I would follow him once I wrapped up things at my own job, once I put my career on hold for him. I had planned to move in February, but tonight I was going early, a spontaneous decision born out of loneliness and the belief that surprising him would remind us both why we were doing this. I wanted to see his face light up when I walked through the door. I wanted to feel his arms around me after all these weeks apart. I needed to feel like this was worth it. So I drove through a snowstorm, putting every ounce of trust one had left into this man. And then, when I finally arrived, I walked into the hotel lobby and saw something that shattered everything. The hotel was warm, and for a second, the heat made me lightheaded after hours in the cold. Snow dripped from my coat onto the pristine tile floor as I stepped forward, my boots squeaking slightly with every movement. Then I saw him. At first, it didn't register. My brain refused to comprehend it. Drew, standing in the middle of the lobby, holding hands with a woman. I stopped dead in my tracks. Something in me, the rational part, the trusting part, tried to make excuses. Maybe it was just friendly. Maybe I was exhausted and imagining things. Then she turned, and the breath in my lungs disintegrated. Her. My boss. For a second, the world tilted, as if my entire sense of gravity had been rewired. Her lips curled into a smirk. A slow, knowing smirk that confirmed everything before a single word was spoken. "Well," she said, voice smooth and self-satisfied. I guess the promotion wasn't just about performance. The air around me thickened. The hotel lobby, the Christmas tree in the corner, the front desk clerk tapping away at a computer, it all blurred into nothing. There was only the roaring in my ears. Only them. Drew's hand was still intertwined with hers. And he had the audacity to look guilty. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. He stammered, voice barely above a whisper, "It's not what it looks like." Something inside me cracked. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Really?" My voice sounded foreign. Hollow. Because it looks exactly like what it is. Drew stepped forward, but I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. I could have screamed. Could have thrown the bag I had packed with such excitement just hours before. Could have sobbed, demanded an explanation, begged for a reason why the man I had given everything to was standing here with another woman, my boss of all people. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit record. "You know," I said, voice eerily calm, "I wonder how HR would feel about a married manager sleeping with one of her subordinates. Pretty sure that's against company policy." For the first time, the smirk on my boss's face faltered. "You wouldn't," she said. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. "Wouldn't I?" Drew paled. "Please," I turned on my heel and walked right back out into the storm. The drive back home was a blur. I don't remember the roads. Don't remember how I made it through the ice and the snow without sliding into a ditch. The only thing I remember is the ringing silence in my car, the crushing finality of it. By the time I got home, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts. Drew, 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 please talk to me. It wasn't what you think. I love you, just let me explain. Don't do anything stupid. I read them, deleted them, blocked his number. Then I sent the video to HR. By the next afternoon, my boss was placed under investigation. By the end of the week, she was fired. Drew called again, this time from an unknown number. I let it ring. The next day, I got an email from his company's ethics department. They had been made aware of the relationship. His future? Not looking too bright anymore. I moved out of our apartment before he even made it home. And I never looked back. 2 months later, a friend sent me a link to an online forum where employees from my old company shared anonymous workplace horror stories. And there it was. A post detailing every single dirty little detail of Drew's affair. The favoritism. The secret meetings. The promotion that wasn't earned. And the best part? It went viral. Drew tried to salvage his career, but the damage was done. The job market wasn't kind to men who got promotions by sleeping their way up. As for my boss? Turns out, she was married too. And her husband? A high-profile attorney. She lost more than just her job. And me? I moved to Boston. Got a new job. Started therapy. And I learned something important. Revenge is great. But moving on? That's even better. Because the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's building a better one for yourself. And I did. The morning after I sent the video to HR, I woke up to silence. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful. The kind that feels hollow. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process the events of the last 24 hours. My body felt like lead, heavy and immovable, as if the weight of what had happened had finally settled into my bones. It should have felt good knowing I had done the right thing. But the only thing I felt was emptiness. There was no joy, no satisfaction. Just a deep, gnawing ache in my chest. I rolled over and checked my phone. 36 missed calls. I stared at his name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the voicemail icon before I could stop myself. I knew I shouldn't. I knew. But I pressed play anyway. His voice came through, raw and desperate. Please, just pick up. I don't know what to say. I messed up. I know I messed up. But you weren't supposed to find out this way. I closed my eyes. I was going to tell you. I swear to God, I was. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. My jaw clenched so tightly it ached. I love you, okay? I still love you. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. You and I were bigger than this. Don't throw everything away over one mistake. One mistake. One mistake. I felt something in my stomach churn. My fingers trembled as I deleted the voicemail. Then the next one. And the next. By the time I finished, there was nothing left of him in my phone. And yet, his words stayed lodged in my chest, like a shard of glass I couldn't pull free. Packing was harder than I thought it would be. It wasn't the logistics. I had already arranged for a moving company to store my things in a storage unit until I figured out my next step. It wasn't even the memories, though those hurt like HLL. It was the stupid, ordinary things. His coffee mug next to mine in the cabinet. The framed picture of us from our honeymoon, now face down on the nightstand where I had thrown it. The way his cologne still clung to the closet, even though he hadn't been here in months. For years, this had been our home. Now, it felt like a museum of a life I no longer belonged to. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, stuffing my clothes into suitcases, shoving toiletries into a duffel bag, ripping sheets off the bed like I could erase every trace of him. I found myself standing in the hallway, my breath uneven, my fingers tightening around the edge of my suitcase. I hated him. I hated that he had made me feel this way, like I was the one being erased. Like I was the one who had to start over while he got to keep living his life like nothing had happened. I wasn't going to let that happen. I reached for my phone. And this time, instead of deleting messages, I sent one. Drew didn't expect to see me. That much was clear from the way his face froze when he opened the door. He had moved into a one-bedroom apartment near his new office, a temporary setup, he had told me months ago, until we found a place together. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. He looked like HLL, dark circles under his eyes, his hair messier than usual, like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't think you'd ever speak to me again, he said, stepping aside so I could come in. I'm not here to talk, I replied. I'm here for closure. Drew exhaled shakily, rubbing the back of his neck. I never wanted to hurt you, you know that, right? I laughed. Actually laughed. Do you think that matters? I asked. He didn't answer. You made your choices, Drew. You threw away everything we had for, what? Some temporary thrill? A power trip? Was it worth it? His shoulders sagged. No, he whispered. It wasn't. I studied him. The regret was real, I could see that. But regret and remorse aren't the same thing. He regretted getting caught. He regretted losing the life he had taken for granted. But did he truly feel remorse for what he had done? I wasn't sure. And I wasn't about to spend another second of my life trying to figure it out. I pulled out an envelope from my bag and handed it to him. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Divorce papers," I said simply. His breath hitched. You already had these drawn up." "I had them printed at a FedEx this morning," I said. I saw the way his hands trembled as he took them. "So, that's it?" he asked. "Just like that." "Just like that," I echoed. He let out a breath, nodding slowly. "I guess I deserve that." "You deserve a lot of things, Drew," I said. "But closure? That's for me." I turned to leave. And this time, I didn't look back. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Drew's life unraveled. His reputation at work was shot. He wasn't outright fired, but he might as well have been. The people who once admired him now whispered behind his back. Opportunities dried up. Promotions became impossible. And when my boss's husband, the high-profile attorney, filed for divorce, she lost everything. Her job, her home, her reputation. Part of me thought it would feel good, watching them both fall. But instead, all I felt was nothing, because I had already moved on. I wasn't healed yet, not even close. There were still nights where I woke up in a panic, still moments where I heard his voice in my head and felt my stomach churn. But I was free. And that was everything. The first morning in my new apartment felt like waking up in someone else's life. For the first time in years, there was no trace of him. No second toothbrush in the holder. No worn hoodie of his draped over the chair. No scent of his cologne lingering in the air. It was just me. The silence was both comforting and crushing. I sat on the bare mattress, no frame yet, just the box spring on the floor, and stared at the blank walls. The movers had left my boxes stacked in the corner, but I hadn't touched them yet. Because unpacking meant acceptance. It meant acknowledging that this empty space, this unfamiliar quiet, was my life now. That the version of me who had packed those boxes, the version who had believed in love, in marriage, in Drew, she was gone. And I didn't know who I was without her. Grief is a strange thing. People think of it as linear: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But that's bull SHT. In reality, it's a loop. A spiral. A goddamn maze you get lost in over and over again. Some days I felt okay. I could get out of bed, go to work, even joke around with coworkers like nothing had happened. Other days, I woke up feeling like my chest had caved in. And then there were the bad days. The ones where I did stupid things. Like the night I found myself sitting outside Drew's apartment in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I wasn't even sure why I was there. Morbid curiosity? Some part of me that still wanted answers? Closure? Or maybe I just wanted to see him suffer. Through his window, I could see him sitting on his couch, hunched over his phone. His hair was messier than usual, and even from here, I could tell he looked like SHT good. He deserved to feel like garbage. But still, my stomach twisted. I didn't want to pity him. So I turned the key in the ignition and drove away, forcing myself to let go. That was the last time I let myself go near him. I had spent years working at my job, climbing my way up through long hours, impossible deadlines, and office politics. I had earned my place. Then Drew and my boss had their affair, and suddenly I was the woman everyone pitied. I could feel the whispers behind my back in the office kitchen. The pitying glances. The way people carefully chose their words around me, like I was too fragile to handle normal conversation. Even the well-meaning coworkers made it worse. "You're so strong. I don't know how you're handling this so well. If you ever need to talk," I didn't want their sympathy. I wanted my respect back. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I worked. I threw myself into my job harder than ever before. I stayed late, took on extra projects. I refused to let this scandal define me. And slowly, people stopped whispering. Slowly, I became me again. But just when I thought I was regaining control, I found out something that nearly sent me spiraling all over again. It happened on a Wednesday. Just an ordinary day. I was in the break room, stirring cream into my coffee, when I overheard two coworkers whispering by the fridge. "Did you hear? She's pregnant." I wasn't paying attention until I heard the name. My ex-boss. My hands went still. The spoon clinked against the side of my mug. Pregnant. I turned, heart hammering. "What did you just say?" One of them turned pale. "Oh! I didn't think she's pregnant." I asked again, voice eerily calm. The other woman nodded, eyes wide. "Yeah, it's Drew's." The room spun. I gripped the counter to steady myself. Drew was having a baby with the woman he cheated on me with. Everything inside me cracked open again. I had spent months trying to move on, trying to rebuild, and in 1 second, it felt like all my progress was a joke. He got to have a family, a future, a fresh start. And what did I get? An empty apartment and a pile of broken trust. It wasn't fair. I hated that it still hurt. I hated that it made me feel like I was the one who had lost. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to handle it. I don't remember walking back to my desk. I don't remember sitting down, staring blankly at my computer screen as my vision blurred. All I could hear were those words, looping over and over in my head. It's Drew's. A baby. They were having a baby. I gripped the edge of my desk, nails digging into the wood so hard I thought I'd splinter it. I had spent years picturing what our future would look like. A house with a yard. Lazy Sunday mornings, tangled up in each other. A baby, maybe? Someday. But he had stolen the dream from me. And now? He was giving it to someone else. Someone who had smirked at me in that hotel lobby while holding my husband's hand. The betrayal burned all over again, fresh and raw, like a wound I had convinced myself was healing only to have the stitches ripped out. I needed air. Without a word, I grabbed my coat and walked out of the office, ignoring the concerned glances of my coworkers. I didn't stop walking until I was outside, where the winter air hit me like a slap to the face. Breathe. In. Out. In. Out. I wasn't going to break down over him. Not anymore. But that didn't stop the rage from boiling under my skin. Because for all his apologies, for all his "I didn't mean to hurt you, and I still love you," this proved that he had never really given a damn about me. If he had, he wouldn't have done this. That night, I made a mistake. A very bad one. I wasn't planning on drinking, but one glass of wine turned into 2, which turned into 4, which turned into me sitting on my couch with my phone in my hand, hovering over an all-too-familiar number. I don't even remember hitting dial. But suddenly, there was ringing. And then his voice. Hello. I should have hung up. I should have thrown my phone across the room and gone to bed. Instead, I said, "So, you knocked her up." A long pause. Then, a slow exhale. "You heard." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "You could say that." I didn't. He stopped. Sighed. "I wasn't going to tell you like this." "Oh." "How were you going to tell me, Drew? Were you going to wait until I ran into you and your happy little family at the grocery store? Or maybe a Christmas card? Merry Christmas from Drew, homewrecker, and baby. Jesus, that's not. Do you even care?" I cut him off, voice shaking. "Did you even think, for one goddamn second, how this would feel for me?" Another pause. And then, quietly, "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," I whispered. And this time, I hung up first. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a vague sense of regret. But before I could dwell on it, my phone rang. I frowned. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello. Is this her name?" a deep voice asked. "Who's asking?" A pause. Then, "This is Eric. I'm ex-boss's husband." My stomach dropped. I shot up in bed, suddenly very, very awake. What? "I think we need to talk." We met that evening at a quiet bar, the kind where the lights are low and the music is just loud enough to drown out private conversations. I had never seen him in person before. He was tall, well-dressed, and had the kind of presence that commanded a room without even trying. And right now, he looked furious. He wasted no time, sliding a folder across the table the moment I sat down. "Go ahead. Open it." I hesitated before flipping it open, only to feel my breath catch. Inside were emails, texts, receipts, proof. My boss had been using company money to fund her affair with Drew. Business trips that weren't business. Hotel charges disguised as work expenses. And she was still doing it. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. This wasn't just a scandal. This was illegal. I looked up at him, stunned. "How did you get all this?" His mouth curved into a humorless smile. "She used our joint account for some of it. She never thought I'd check." I exhaled slowly. "So, why are you showing me this?" He leaned back, watching me carefully. "Because I want to ruin them. And I think you do too." For the first time in months, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt power. Eric wasn't just some bitter husband out for revenge. He was smart, calculated, and he was giving me an opportunity to do what I never could have done alone. Destroy them both. Legally. Publicly. Permanently. I tapped my fingers against the folder. What's your plan? He smirked. First, we hit HR. Then we go public. I raised an eyebrow. Public? He pulled out his phone and scrolled for a second before holding it up for me to see. My stomach dropped. It was a journalist's email. A well-known one. A journalist who specialized in corporate scandals. He held my gaze. If we do this, there's no going back. I looked down at the folder again, flipping through pages of evidence. The woman who had smirked at me in that hotel lobby? The man who had called his betrayal a mistake. They had destroyed me without a second thought. And now? It was my turn. I reached for my drink, took a slow sip, and then met Eric's gaze. Let's do it. Eric and I spent the next 2 weeks carefully assembling our plan. It wasn't just about exposing them, it was about hitting them where it hurt the most. For Drew, that was his career. The job he had prioritized over our marriage, the professional reputation he had worked years to build. For my ex-boss, it was power. The influence she had in the corporate world, the control she had over people, the status that made her feel untouchable. We were going to strip it all away. But first, we needed to be smart. No emotions. No impulsiveness. Because revenge? The best kind takes its time. Eric had already done the groundwork. All I had to do was walk into HR with the folder and place it on the director's desk. I think you'll find these expenses interesting, I said, keeping my voice light. The HR director barely looked at me until she opened the folder. Then, her face drained of color. It was all there. Unauthorized company funds used for personal expenses. False reporting. Violations of corporate policies that, if exposed, could trigger an internal investigation and a scandal big enough to make headlines. I didn't even have to say Drew's name, because his signature was all over those documents. And my boss? She was the one who had approved them. HR wasn't just concerned. They were horrified. We'll handle this immediately, they assured me. I smiled. Oh, I know you will. Within days, the fallout began. First, Drew was called into an urgent meeting. From what I heard later, he walked in confident. He walked out destroyed. He had no explanation for the financial discrepancies. No excuse that could save him. He wasn't outright fired, but the damage was done, his credibility was gone. No promotions. No trust. No future at the company. He had officially sabotaged himself. And my ex-boss? Oh, hers was even worse. HR didn't just confront her, they escalated it to corporate legal. By the end of the week, she was forced to resign. Her career? Over. And the best part? They still didn't know who was behind it. Eric and I could have stopped there. But why settle for just internal consequences when we could make it public? That's where the journalist came in. We handed over everything, not just the financial fraud, but the affair, the abuse of power, the workplace misconduct. A full expose. And when it dropped, the internet did its thing. The story exploded. Social media lit up. Employees who had been mistreated by my boss in the past came forward. Clients started pulling deals. People recognized Drew's name in the article and started digging into his past behavior. By the time the dust settled, they weren't just disgraced. They were untouchable. No company wanted to hire someone who had made headlines for workplace fraud. No employer wanted a manager with a reputation for corruption. Every door slammed shut. They had built their careers on power and deception. And now, they had nothing left. I thought that was the end of it. But then, Drew called me. It had been months since I had heard his voice. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hey, he said, voice quiet. Can we talk? I let out a slow breath. About what? A pause. Then, hesitantly, I lost my job. No one will hire me. And she left. I blinked. She what? He let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, turns out when the money dried up, so did her love. He exhaled sharply. She's not having the baby. I felt nothing. Not relief. Not sympathy. Just nothing. So, what do you want from me, Drew? Another silence. Then, finally, I don't know. I miss you. I almost laughed. I almost told him what a pathetic excuse of a man he was. But instead, I just smiled to myself. Goodbye, Drew. And this time, I hung up for good. It took me a long time to rebuild. Not just my career. Not just my confidence. But myself. I wasn't the same person who had driven through a snowstorm to surprise a husband who never deserved me. I wasn't the woman who had once believed love meant blind loyalty. I had learned to be smarter, stronger, wiser. I had learned that revenge isn't about ruining someone else's life. It's about taking back your own. And standing in my new apartment, the morning sun streaming through the windows, coffee in hand, I knew I had done exactly that. And I had never felt more satisfied.